everyone, and welcome to the Sweet Tea series. My name is Ariana Silva, and today I am joined by Jordan, who is a student at the University of Texas. Right now, she's the co-chair of the Young Conservatives of Texas chapter there, and she's also the communications director for the Horde. So, hi, Jordan, and welcome.
Yes, thank you so much for having me here.
So, I guess tell me a little bit about yourself. So, just the basic things that they'll ask you on your first day of class, like name, major. We can skip pronouns for this one, but
Okay.
year that you're in.
Oh my goodness, no kidding. Okay, so my name is Jordan Leighty, and I am currently the senior advertising major at the University of Texas, Hook 'em Horns.
Yes,
But yes,
definitely.
I minor in Spanish. I don't know if that's relevant to this, but I love it. I always sound smarter when I throw that in, you know?
That you're minoring in it?
Yes.
I mean, the languages at UT are actually very difficult.
They are.
Like, usually when people, like, I feel at any other university, it's like, oh, okay, whatever, they're getting a minor in a language. At UT, if you do most people do the language classes
true.
outside of it. Like, I took the language credits outside of it because they're actually
Yes,
difficult.
UT will make sure you're fluent. If you take the courses at UT, like you will be fluent in
Do you
that
sound
language.
like better than the natives by the time that you're done with
No,
it?
not quite, but I'm able to talk with them and it's amazing. But yeah.
So you're part of a publication called, is it just called The Horn, or is it the Texas Horn?
It's the Horn for short and in between us, but it is the Texas Horn officially. But yeah, it's a newspaper publication. It's online and we do print as well. It is, I think, the only conservative newspaper voice on campus. So that's kind of a cool thing about us, that we give conservatives, I guess, a voice.
Yeah, but you've also gotten, like, it's not just a small thing. Like, I think
No,
I remember
it's
during...
award-winning too. It's gotten awards.
Oh, do you want to tell us about the awards?
Let me see if I can remember them. It happened a little bit before I joined, but I know that different newspaper publications that are notable and you would recognize have, like, used our articles or hired our graduates. So it's definitely an amazing thing.
The thing that really made me realize that how established it was during one of the formal elections, just how many interviews y'all did with all the different candidates. And
Yes.
I feel like even throughout session, I'm seeing y'all do interviews with all the different, like, legislators and stuff like that. So I feel like you've had a lot of notable people being willing to, like, sit down with
For
your
sure.
writers.
And it's growing, you know, it's like, because let's say you get one interview with somebody and then everyone else that they're a candidate against, they're all of a sudden like, oh no, like I gotta get an interview too.
They get a little bit jealous of each other.
Exactly.
So, you're also part of Young Conservatives of Texas,
Yes.
which is how we met originally whenever I was still at UT.
Yes, it was.
Why don't you tell us about the organization?
Yeah, so it's basically a Texas-wide organization at the chapter, or at the state level, I guess. And then the chapter I'm a part of is obviously the University of Texas chapter. So I'm the co-chair there with another guy.
What kind of activities do you all do as part of that?
Yeah, so we do activism events where we either, we could do anything from like holding signs, like sort of a protest on campus, or we could even do anything from like, I don't know, we do lunches together, a lot of stuff like that. So that's like the activism part where we do that.
Yeah, so it's like the social, what I remember the big four were like we did social events, activism events, and then there was like, you got involved in races too. Do you guys still do get involved in that side?
Yes, we still do, I guess, that sort of thing.
Nice. So right now you are one of the, I mean, in the grand scheme of the university, one of the lone conservatives being willing to be open on campus.
Yes.
But I want to like kind of go back a little bit because going into college, you weren't like someone who was just bombastically open about being conservative.
So true.
Let's start even before then. So how did you become conservative, or how did you start imitating those values and implementing them in your own life?
Yeah, great question. So I guess I've always been conservative. I had a very conservative upbringing. My parents are always great parents about that. Very educational. They always answered any questions I had. We had open discussions about politics too. So that was nice, and I appreciate that a lot. It really didn't, I guess, I wasn't as conservative as I am now. That really started, I guess, during COVID, because everything was, I guess, very political. And
when was COVID for you? Like, when did it start?
COVID fell for me right at the end of my senior year in high school. So I graduated 2020. So yeah, that was a time to graduate.
Was it weird? Like, do you feel like there was something that just felt left out or missing from like wrapping up your high school
Yes,
experience?
I missed out on a bunch of huge high school landmarks. Senior prom, totally, totally gone for me, not an option.
Hmm.
Let's see, graduation was really weird. I could only invite 6 people total to my graduation. So that was another thing where it was like, oh no, like this was just stripped away. You can't remake that
Right.
graduation. Yeah.
And how was it moving into college in an atmosphere like that?
Yes, very weird. At UT, I lived in the dorms like a lot of other freshmen, and in the dorms, normally you have a roommate, but for COVID, I guess this was one positive is that nobody had a roommate really. They really made sure that everyone just had a dorm to themselves. They had a lot of regulations too. You couldn't have anybody in your dorm that wasn't allowed. So there were a ton of rules. You had to wear your mask constantly, like in the hallways, in the bathrooms, just throughout the, I guess, the dorms, but it was a very different environment.
How was that then being able to make friends if you're just
Yeah.
constantly in your room or with a
The
mask on?
only reason I had friends freshman year was because I met someone online in a group chat through an app. So the only way was I reached out to her, and she had luckily friends that she probably met online. And then you get to meet outside of like that online sphere. And yeah, that's the only way though that I had friends. But I know a lot of people didn't even come to school that year.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you feel like it impacted like you or other people your age, like having to move into adulthood but having all of those restrictions on them or
Yes. No, it definitely hindered that generation, especially the people that either graduated 2020 or, I guess, any time there really in that 4 years. I would say we've been kind of affected,
like the ones that hit in high school
socially.
specifically is what you're saying?
The ones that graduated, and I guess up until now, I think now is like the most probably normal time to be a
Right.
freshman, but it's been kind of crazy socially, just trying to make friends. I know it's been difficult.
How do student orgs work then if you're
Oh, it was complicated. That's actually why I got into YCT originally. They were the only ones that were like trying still. I remember I wanted to join a dancing org, and they were actually on Zoom. So I was like, okay, I don't want to do that anymore. But YCT
so
was
was it like
having.
individual dancing or what was
I
the thing
have no
supposed to
idea.
be?
I just heard it was on Zoom, and I was like, okay, that sounds really awkward. I'm okay. But yeah, so YCT actually had their meetings outdoors, and that was an amazing opportunity because I was like, wow, these people are actually kind of normal. This reminds me of normal times, and that's what I was craving so much
Did you
during
show up with
COVID.
a mask to your first
I
meeting?
did. I showed up with a mask, and then tons of people there, I would say like half, didn't have a mask. And I was already kind of uncomfortable with the idea of taking off my mask because I've been like trained by the university so hard and then living in the dorms. So I finally like took my mask off, and it felt liberating, honestly. I was like, wow, like this is normal, I feel normal now. But yeah.
So you said you weren't political before COVID, right? So what was it
Yeah.
about that experience that made you realize like I guess something about individual liberty or something that has to be or that yeah, just like
Yeah.
activated that part of you that needs
So, great
realizes that change
question
is
because
connected.
I've always been very political but not knowing it, and disguising it more as, oh, I'm a good Christian. I go to church,
Mm,
I'm with my fellow churchgoers going to like a pro-life event. It's always been in the background of things, but it wasn't until I kind of I guess got older, and politics and being political does come with age. Like you don't see a 6-year-old being like, "Oh yay, politics," but yeah, no, it's definitely something that now I was kind of forced into it, really. I was just thrown into the fire of politics because of COVID. It was so
right.
divisive, so polarizing. So yeah, it really made me like be more stronger in what I believe in. That makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is really awesome that you were able to cultivate that even while being at UT.
Mhm.
I actually kind of, and one of the reasons I even wanted you to be on the show was to talk about some of the stuff happening at UT Austin and just what it's like to have to be a conservative in that sort of atmosphere. So,
Yeah.
just to like read a couple of different like news headlines about it. So, just to show how liberal UT is, there was like campus reform article that was published in May of this year that said the University of Texas at Austin recommended using women, spelled WIMMIN, in place
Mhm.
of the word women, since the latter contains the word men. And the suggestion was initially published on the university's Financial and Administrative Services website under its Language Matters glossary of terms. So that's the type of atmosphere that,
Wow.
at least from my time at UT, I feel like I saw all around in several different classes, that
Yes.
sort of thing. So did you have experiences like that where,
Yeah, that's a very interesting fact. I didn't know that, but it does not surprise me one bit. Yeah, so I feel like every class basically has, some sort of element of, especially, DEI or some sort of like pronoun element, like, oh, everyone, like introduce yourself, like you said earlier. It's definitely relevant living on campus, being in the classrooms.
so DEI is still a thing there? And so,
It's a big
yeah.
thing.
So DEI is diversity, equity, and inclusion. And what was so weird is I feel like that started in that terminology was, um, that became popular after I graduated. And I only
Really.
graduated like just over
I
a
feel
year
like
ago
you
now.
just
Right. Yeah.
graduated.
But
Yeah.
before then, I feel like we were still using stuff like intersectionality and we were using words like equity, but it didn't become, at least for me, I
Yeah.
didn't notice it being diversity, equity, and
Interesting.
inclusion
Yeah, no,
until then
that
after that.
first one they don't ever use. I've never heard that, but that's interesting how it changes so quickly.
You didn't learn about the intersectionality of
No,
it?
no, that's new to me.
Well, I guess it's old now, but yeah,
Oh,
I
so
remember we had
true.
like classes talking about that. So
Hmm.
what is the climate like then in terms of like social circles with teachers? What does that look like?
Yeah. Let's see. So basically, I would say it's up front in the syllabus. You start a class and it's like boom, like right there already. Every syllabus has to have it, I think. I haven't seen a syllabus without like a DEI part in it. Let's see.
So it actually
Yeah,
was banned though this year by the Texas
really. Oh,
legislator.
that's
So
funny.
there's yeah, I actually have a different story about this. So
Okay.
this is something that was published by one of our writers here at TBPF, senior fellow Sherry Sylvester. So she just kind of goes over it saying Governor Greg Abbott signed Texas anti-DEI bill into law on June 14th, which would close down so-called diversity, equity, inclusion offices on every Texas university campus. But you're saying that didn't happen for you guys?
Not really. I still see it. I still see it everywhere. I think there might even be like a special room for that. I would have to look it up further, but at least there used to be,
So what
you
does it
know.
look like in the syllabus? Like, what do you mean by DEI?
They just have to make sure they put it in there. I could probably show you after for sure, but it's in there. I think it's trying to propose, respect and inclusion, and just make sure everyone feels welcome, you know. But I don't know.
Well,
It's an
how
interesting.
does it make you feel then? Or do you feel like your views are protected under that as well?
Politically, definitely not. I used to hide it a lot my freshman year, just for fear of, losing friends and maybe even getting a bad grade. I've written a essay before, with more of a like a left-leaning slant just so that I don't get docked those points because, I don't know if the professor cannot like hold a personal bias against me if I do right with my
Right.
real like conservative political views, yeah.
Do the professors ever make comments mocking conservatives or?
Yes, all the time. I counted last fall actually that at least two of my four professors that I had that semester, yes, they made some sort of, I guess, either a joke or like some sort of statement, something that they said that just made me know that, okay, this is the way that they're politically aligned.
Right.
And from that moment on, I was like, okay, I got to be real careful in this class, because they didn't follow that up with anything like, oh, but it's okay if you like believe something else. Nothing like that was said after. So I was kind of watching my words in my essays after that.
Do your other friends in YCT experience the same thing in their classes?
They do. I think the ones that are in either government or in other sort of maybe philosophy classes, they're more open to different thoughts and they can be more bold about those. But I'm in the Moody College of Communication and it's kind of ironic, but I feel like I can't communicate those views.
Yes, I definitely felt that as well in the film classes. It is weird because people would be making comments all the time. I remember once even my freshman year, they were making fun of, or they were talking about, I think they were talking about people who are not actually tolerant on campus and how there's work to be done. And they specifically named young conservatives
Oh
in
no.
Texas as a problem in the classroom.
Wow.
And then shortly after that, the next year, there was, because you were still in high school then in 2019, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yes.
so there was even a Fox News article that was written about this, and several other outlets covered it too. But there were students who were being threatened with doxing. Do you know what that is? Where
Yes.
where your personal information is put online if they were joining Young Conservatives of Texas specifically.
Wow.
And
I
in
have
retaliation,
heard stories about that,
yeah.
and it always is in the back of my mind that I could get doxxed or anything like that. But I am a senior now, um, so I'm pretty much upfront about my political views, especially meeting friends for the first time. I've learned that that's like the best way. Just kind of don't shove it down their face, but if it comes up, it comes up. Like don't hide it, which I used to do heavily freshman year. I would, avoid at all costs, kind of never really say my opinion.
So what changed
Yeah,
between
what
those two?
changed? That's a
Or
great
actually, let's even set it
question.
up a little bit more. What was
Okay.
it? What was it like coming onto UT campus with so many students who were just outwardly liberal and speaking your views? How were you received at
Yes.
first?
At first, it was very apparent between like conversations and just once again that COVID topic. Once anybody kind of spoke about COVID, you kind of see which way they leaned. So I kind of stayed quiet at first, and after that, I did meet a couple people who were kind of quiet too. So I had a hunch about them. I was like, oh, maybe they think like I do, and they were the most chill of the group. So I did end up telling them, and it seems like such a big thing to me, at least back then, that I would even tell them. So once I did, they were like, oh, I think that way too. So that was a really awesome experience to have people.
Was it like
Um,
relief for them too to be able to speak about it
it
out loud?
was, yes, because we would even talk about it like, wow, like I thought everyone here was like not like me, and I was like, no, like I'm here for you, like we think the same. It's chill. Yeah.
Did you ever end up having, um, did it end up ending any friendships whenever you started being more
Yes,
open?
it did. So I was part of a friend group my freshman year and going into sophomore and even junior year. And eventually, yes, it did end a lot of friendships there. And I'm sure,
How does that happen?
you
How do those
know,
conversations look?
yeah, so I remember distinctly one time after introducing a lot of the YCT people and a lot of my friends from that friend group at the time. After introducing them, it was such like a stark contrast. I remember even in the other room one day there was a conversation, pretty heated too, over Trump actually. So that was kind of interesting, but I felt bad. I brought these two groups together and here they are fighting
Mm.
in the bedroom. And then I remember
Because it was at a
distinctly,
party or,
yes, it was just
yeah,
like a get together, but
yeah.
yeah, no, it was kind of heated. But yeah, after that, after like the first formal introduction, one of my friends actually told me, she was like, I like you, but I don't like your friends.
Mm.
So that kind of hurt a lot. And from that moment, I was never really treated the same, I guess, because it's hard when that's your identity and someone just doesn't like that at all. So it did eventually drive us apart.
Right. I experienced
Yeah.
kind of a similar situation. So my freshman year, I was also very closed off about it. Or I would do, like, whenever I was doing the campus activism events, I'm
Yes.
part of a big group. It's fine. But in class, I was like, I want people to like me here. I'm doing film.
Exactly.
This is going to be weird. But I remember there was one of my friends from, like, the film stuff. He played Dungeons and Dragons with his friends and invited me to join the group. Yeah, that kind of nerd. But so I was doing that for like a couple of weeks with them. And then we had stopped for a little bit, just due to unrelated stuff. And somehow it came up one day that I was conservative. I think it may have been around the time where I was originally doxxed that freshman
Okay.
year. Um, and so his friends were getting mad at him for being friends with me in spite of my political views. And so I wasn't welcome back at their
Oh
house after
no.
that, which was just a really weird thing. But one
That
thing I
is.
appreciated about that friend was he's not conservative at all, but he was willing to be like, this is ridiculous. You know that she's a good person. You just disagree with her on this stuff, and now you don't want to associate with her.
Yes.
So it was a really weird.
That is such a good point because I do have a lot of friends that are with me now and that have stayed with me despite my political views because they're, I guess, more chill, to put it frankly. They just don't really care and
Right.
they like me as a person. And that's honestly the kind of friendship you want, anyways.
So that's how it is in like within those personal life. What is it like in the classroom with other
Yes.
students?
In the classroom with other students, because we're not on that personal level yet, I
Mm-hmm.
am really hesitant to just be upfront about my views, especially I remember this past fall, right at the beginning, during introductions, when my professors went down every student, just, say your name, say your major, and say where you want to go. And I kind of want to go into maybe political communications.
Right.
So I wanted to say that, but at the same time, it was not happening in front of like my class of 30 kids that I really don't know well. And I just meet my professor for the first time. I don't want to be upfront about being very political just yet.
In those situations, do they still ask pronouns as well within that group of questions?
Yes, it was definitely optional
Yeah.
during that time, yes.
But I feel like I think every single class I was in by the end, not even just the film ones, on the first day when you do the introductions, it's
Yes.
name, pronouns, then major, and all the other stuff. What do you choose to do in those situations?
If I can, I'll skip it.
That's what I did too.
Yeah. It is on Zoom now. Oh, it's on Zoom and it's also on Canvas. I'm not sure if you're aware, but both kind of, I guess, infrastructures that we use
Have it on there. Yeah, I'm
Mhm.
trying to remember if I figured out a way to change it or not during the middle of it, but
Yeah.
it's just weird that that's just something
It's still
that's
optional,
on there.
to be clear, so I don't put it, but it's an option for sure. That's utilized, I guess, often by other students. But
Right.
yeah.
But yeah, it is just, I just think it's weird that you're being put in that situation to
Yes.
begin with by
And it was
teachers
never weirder, that feeling of kind of, if you don't, you're kind of like, people are skeptical. But I never felt that more. I guess it was the spring of my sophomore year, so I guess 2 years ago now, but everyone is still mandated to wear masks in the classroom, but it was kind of optional. But everyone was like mandated, like you better wear one, but like
But
you
well,
don't
at
have
that time,
to.
this was spring of what year of last
Oh,
or 2 years
shoot.
ago.
Mm-hmm.
So I think during that time, it was the state said that the university was no longer allowed to require it, but teachers could highly recommend it.
Yes, and they did highly
Right.
recommend it. But I was done with the masks. I wanted to kind of just stand up for myself, stand up for what I believed is right. So I didn't wear one.
Were
And
you sometimes the only student in
I
the
was
class?
the only one in a lot of my smaller classes. And then in the other ones, I was like maybe one of like two or three, but most people like wore them, and it was very kind of awkward feeling.
Did the teachers ever say anything or try to offer
They
you
never
one?
said anything. I do remember another student actually, I forget what they said exactly, but they were like, if it makes people uncomfortable, you should wear a mask. And I was like, well, I don't think anyone's feeling uncomfortable. And then they were like, okay, fine, like whatever.
I'm
But
surprised they didn't double down and be like, well, I'm uncomfortable.
yes, luckily class was starting, so everyone kind of went inside. But
So a student
yeah.
came up to you with that. Wow.
Yes, and it was interesting because. Yeah.
Do you think that more liberal or left-wing students feel the same way as you do about not being open with their opinions or feeling like that they should hide them in any way during classes?
Absolutely not. It's actually an assumption across all students and all professors that if you're going to college at UT, I would say fairly that you are more liberal, with your views. So people will make jokes openly, and it's until I'm like, oh, I actually like the Abbott guy. It's at that point that they're like, oh, okay, somebody doesn't think like I do. It's kind of interesting to watch kind of like the gears turn, because it's just assumed widely that everyone is, and it's okay to kind of bash on conservative viewpoints and kind of just make jokes about it, or even just, I guess, present your views openly, and everyone will be okay with it. Everyone
Right.
will agree. Everyone in the room's agreeing with you.
It is weird, I guess, because I'm thinking back on some of the classes that I had, and people were just very willing to say their opinions that I would consider, and I think most adults who are like, above millennial age would probably be like, wow, that's a very radical position no matter what side of the aisle you're on. But during classes, they were just willing to say some very interesting
It is a very
stuff.
interesting, and it makes me feel a lot less able to express myself, for sure, in the classroom.
Well, speaking about free speech then, and like that sort of ability,
Yeah.
last week was Free Speech Week on
It
UT
was.
campus. What was that like?
Yeah, so I know that UT did work hard as a whole to kind of make free speech more of a topic that's talked about. So there, I know, is panels, we also got an email last week about free speech. Is actually from President Hartzell, so he sent it out. And the only thing I remember in that was just like a feeling of, oh, maybe um, this could help, But I started reading it, and there was a lot of talk about we brought this person to campus last week, we brought this person to campus, like how can we possibly not support free speech? But what I think a lot of people don't realize is it's not about how many people you bring to campus, it's actually about what goes on in the classroom.
Mm.
And the feeling, I guess, that people are allowed to be open in the classroom, because there's a big difference between, I guess, like what you see on the outside and
Right.
what it actually feels to be a student in the
So there's a
classroom.
difference between bringing someone once a month onto the campus or allowing that, I
Correct.
guess. Like, thank you,
Correct.
our overlords, for letting us have one speaker. But if in the classroom you still feel like you can't express yourself in your writing, then is there
Exactly.
any actual freedom? Yeah. Um, and then going off of that too, I feel like you're definitely not alone in that feeling. So this is from the Dallas Express. UT Austin ranked 239 out of 248 in the 2024 College Free Speech Rankings from the Foundation of Individual Rights and Expression, also called FIRE. This study was based on surveys of more than 55,000 students across the country, and UT Austin placed the lowest of any school on that list. Does that surprise you at all?
That does not surprise me at all. We are probably by far the most liberal campus in college, among Texas colleges. So I feel like if you are somewhat left leaning, going to UT might be a reason you want to go, be a part of that. So I think it does attract a more liberal crowd among the students, and of course the professors as well. They kind of add to that. So overall, yeah, I
Do you
would
think it
agree with
impacts
that.
your learning at all whenever there's only one point of view that's, um, I guess, being
Yeah.
taught at the university?
So when you're trying to learn, right, you need to feel comfortable in your environment. You don't need to be worrying about, oh no, should I not express this view? You shouldn't be worrying about how others perceive you. So I do think it impacts your learning to some degree to not be able to be yourself and to always be thinking about, oh no, like I better not say this, I better not think about saying
To just have
that.
to make sure you have a filter turned on during the day?
Exactly. And that's what it does feel like, honestly, just having a constant filter on.
Wow. So we've talked about the classroom a little bit, what friendship is like. I want to dive in more into what it's like being a young conservative of Texas member there at UT campus.
Yeah.
So, like I was saying, in 2019, we were hated across campus. I found it fun because I liked being like, oh yeah, I'm rebellious. I'm different than everybody else. But that also is hard. So I wanted to see, what is the public perception right now of being in the Young Conservatives of Texas?
Yeah, it's funny you say that because it still kind of does feel like some sort of you have to have a rebellious spirit to be one of the only conservative orgs on campus. And we are the biggest conservative org on campus. We do the most stuff. We are definitely the strongest member wise. So to be that, excuse me, that
Hmm.
form against all these organizations that are left leaning, and there's honestly feels like millions. So it is a little bit of like a rebellious spirit that you need to have to be a member. And then at that, we are viewed, I guess terribly on campus because we do table a lot, we do protests, we do hand out our Texas Horn newspapers. So we do get a lot of
Oh, I didn't know y'all hand
negative
out the
feedback.
newspapers.
We do.
What
We
is
do that
that
on
like?
Speedway.
Really?
Yes, we get a lot of mixed reactions. Some of them, my favorites, are always like, "Oh, thank you for doing this, like
Oh,
when do
wow.
y'all meet? Like, can I join?" And then the other side of that is, of course, like some random like masked dude with an umbrella just coming up and trying to put a sticker on our poster as we're holding it. So
That's happened multiple times though, right?
it has. So that's always kind of rough, just for obviously safety reasons, because you're like, oh no, should I feel in danger right now? Is this bigger than it
Right.
is? Or,
But have
yeah.
police stepped in at all during some of
They
those?
have, yes. So last week, or maybe it was last week, we actually held a UT stands with Israel protest there on campus, and that was received with a lot of hate, a lot of kind of safety concerns, honestly.
Wow.
So the police were there, the UTPD, they were there in the background, making sure everything was okay there. But we did get a lot of good responses
Were
as
the
well.
police necessary whenever they were doing pro-Palestinian activism on campus?
I actually have no idea, but I'd be interested to know.
Yeah, I remember
Yeah.
there were, again, I feel like I was part of like one of the weirder
It
years of
sounds like
YCT
it.
stuff. Yeah, it was before COVID, so
Oh, there
there's
you
just,
go.
and it was also post 2016 election stuff, and then 20, anyway, there were just a lot of situations that made it like a little bit controversial.
Yeah.
But I definitely remember there were two bigger instances where police had to be like there and standing in between the two groups that were doing our
Interesting.
events. Actually, did
Wow.
you ever see that video of the girl biting into our poster and stuff?
No. That sounds
I
insane.
need to see if I can like get a picture or something on onto this here.
Yes.
But basically she because I know we have like a whole video of it. I just have to
Oh
go
my
find it. But we
goodness.
were it was during the Kavanaugh hearing stuff.
Oh, okay.
And there was I think it was like so it was just pro Kavanaugh stuff of like yeah, he's being wrongfully accused and all that sort of stuff. But
Oh my
the
goodness.
counter protests were insane and someone like reached over, grabbed one of the posters and like was trying to like fight it out of their hands and like ended up grabbing it, biting into it and then ripping it down.
That is
So
insane. I
yeah.
actually never seen
I guess she
that,
didn't get
but I
lunch
need
that day,
to.
but
Yeah.
so it was that, and then there was another event hosted by another organization where Antifa kept they were outside protesting and multiple times made their way or tried to make their way in, and one did, and we had to have to get out of the building. Police had to escort us like 10 people at a time,
Oh,
and so they had to
wow.
like have a whole wall of them, and they had like their bikes between us and them because it was in a hallway of just a classroom, and
Oh my
they had to slowly
goodness.
escort some of us out of the building.
That's crazy.
Yeah, just
Wow.
well, I'm glad your public
Good
safety's gotten
times.
better since then. I
Yeah, no, I
guess.
feel like I don't know, maybe COVID, people don't want to get that close anymore, but
That's fair. Are there
um
still masks by certain people?
people do wear masks, yes. For
That's so
that,
weird.
I'm not really sure as to why, but it's not bothering me. I kind of just
That's fair.
think about it for a second, then I'm like, you know what? It's fine. You do you.
Wow. Are there any other fun activism stories or stuff that where you've had encounters with people on the left since you've been there?
Oh my goodness. Let's see.
I know the pro-life ones usually get some
They always get a
kickback.
lot of, yes, kickbacks, the right word for that. I remember we did a specific pro-life one, I guess, either last year, the last year before that, but that was really fun. We had a lot of people on our side out there, so maybe like 6 of us out there in rotation, just holding pro-life posters. And I'll never forget this one interaction I had with this girl. She came up to me, obviously very already kind of touched, that like touched in a bad way,
Ah,
She was
gotcha.
like kind of furious
Less
at
touched,
me.
more impacted.
There you go. There you go. So yeah, she comes up and everyone else at the time was a guy that I was tabling with. So she kind of zeroed in on me and she's like, I don't understand how you as a woman can be pro-life. And I was like, whoa, I should be the most pro-life because I am a woman. But it was an interesting interaction for sure to be singled out like that. And yeah.
Is there still that negative perception of conservatives that they hate women or are trying to oppress them?
Yes, of course. There is. I know there's a lot of jokes about it. That's kind of how you get the most from culture. That's how you can see culture the most, I think, is just
Right.
through like what people are joking about, because that's kind of like the common norm.
But you're in an organization where, and there are a lot of guys in YCT still now,
Yes,
right?
it is
So
mostly male dominated, just because I guess that's the statistic, and it is a correct one. There are more males that are young and in college that support conservative views.
So what is it that you think that women can do to, I guess, get more involved and make sure that they're part of those groups?
Well, they could start by watching the Sweet Tea podcast.
Oh, this is a good answer.
No, just kidding.
I did
No,
not
but
prompt
they
that. Well,
should.
not kidding. Actually,
They
yes.
should.
Please subscribe. Please comment, and then also share with everyone. Please and thank you.
Correct. Also, I think more conversations need to be had between women and just kind of more of an open mind, like
Right.
just because you're a woman, just because you're in college, you don't have to think a certain way. And I don't think anyone's ever, or I don't think many have really thought about it. They've just kind of grown to accept what they think they should accept, which is kind of unfortunate. But I think they should really just take the time to think about it again,
And
or
if
maybe
they're
for the
nervous
first
about
time.
joining a conservative organization or just getting politically active
Yeah.
or policy active from from my side of things now, but what and if let's say that they're nervous about like the guys there because they've heard some things about that they're less accepting of women, have you found that to be the case for you?
No, I have not. I think everyone I've met in YCT has been very considerate, very caring, just genuinely good people. So I would highly recommend if you're nervous, just do it. You will probably lose some friends on the outside. I'm just going to be upfront with you, but it'll be worth it. You'll find more friends that are more accepting of who you are, I guess.
So when there's so much at stake, which could be like your teachers could, like you being in YCT could impact your grades theoretically. It impacts the social circles that you have. It doesn't make your life easier on a day-to-day basis. So why do you choose to be involved?
Yeah, I think it's really important, one, to stay grounded, to have those conversations with people that think like you do, especially when everyone else is just bashing on it and honestly, like, tearing it down. I think it's a great way to stay grounded. And also, it's easier, theoretically, to make friends with those you have in common. Or, yes.
With people who
Those,
you have like common
there you
values
go, there
with?
you go. That
Yeah.
was really botched. But yeah, you get what I'm saying.
And then I think it even like connects to dating life. So like my fiance and I met at the Capitol for different things a few years ago,
Yeah.
and then we had like church stuff in common. And so I just feel like your life in the future is going to be dictated a lot by the people that you
So
choose to surround
true.
yourself with.
Yeah.
And so I feel like it's important to start earlier and to be able to make sure that you have that common ground
That's
underneath you all.
exactly right. It's funny you mentioned that because my boyfriend and I interned at the Capitol together. So,
Oh, really?
yeah, that's so funny that you would mention
Did y'all
that.
meet through interning or did you just
We met through a mutual friend through YCT. So, it
see,
was,
that's awesome.
mhm.
Yeah, so if you're a single lady out there, get politically
Yes,
active and find someone.
correct.
So actually, we had someone submit an Instagram question for us after
Okay.
seeing some of the show, and I thought it was perfect for you since you were on today. So she said, "Hi, I'm a junior at UT, and I was wondering what it's like being openly conservative on campus. I'm in a major that leans very left, and I'm scared in class to share my opinions."
Mm, that's a great question. Well, first of all, hi. And yeah, like I said, just it's worth it to make the leap because all my freshman year, I did hide it. And I ended up losing those friends anyways. So if you're worried about friends, if you're worried about, I guess, just people, once they know the real you, they leave. I wouldn't worry about that. I would find some sort of group on campus so that you do have that social outlet because nobody likes going through college feeling alone and without anybody to rely on. So it's worth it to make the switch, I guess, and be more
Yeah.
open about it.
And what do you think would happen if every single conservative on UT's campus or campuses in Texas
Yeah.
started just being open and acting like their views were normal and should be accepted?
Yeah, I think that would be amazing. First of all, it'd be a big depolarization across campus for sure to have open communication about that very topic. And I think it's needed. I think maybe Silvi underneath the DEI part that doesn't have to be mandated anymore. I think they should also include maybe a preface of, any political view is accepted in this
So what
classroom.
you're saying is almost a policy sort of thing to ensure that political views aren't
Just a
discriminated against?
statement, that would help
Mhm.
tons. Or even if the professors were to just on their own just make a statement in front of the class and be like, hey guys, like, I know I make offhanded comments sometimes, but just know that your grades will not be impacted by this or whatever your views are. I think that would make me feel right at home. But I've never once heard a professor do anything like that. So that'd be a great start.
That's never happened where professors at least prefaced with, hey, these opinions are just mine and you can have your own?
Not exactly. The closest that I probably heard is just, they kind of claim to be more apolitical, even though they're obviously not. That's right after
Gotcha.
following up like
Right.
something they says that was political, and it
Hmm.
prompted them to be like, oh, but I'm not really into politics that much, so it's okay.
Oh, okay. And that
Yeah.
helps. So what you're, I guess, leaving us with today is what you'd ask for universities is make sure that your teachers don't discriminate against conservative students and make it known that it's a safe
Correct.
environment to
And I
have
do
what they feel.
understand that professors do get some sort of training, right, to be a professor, and I'm sure it's ongoing. So maybe they could include some sort of professor training too,
Right.
to be like, hey guys, like let's make sure, because of maybe the statistic that just came out about the free speech at UT.
Right.
Maybe they can work on making the classroom more of a place that's open for all sorts of political opinions, as well as everything else that we're already pretty inclusive about in the classroom.
And just to reiterate for all the ladies out there who are 18 to 22 still in college, what should they do or what should they do with the fact that they're conservative?
Yes, to all my ladies, it's even more so important to be open about those views, because you will make other ladies not feel so alone, you know?
Yeah.
So it will start maybe a snowball effect of, hey, you know, like I think that way too, which would be amazing, but it is far more common to find a guy from that age range on campus to be more open about it.
Right.
So I think we should, as women, start standing up a little bit more for what we believe in.
That's awesome. Thank you so much for joining me today,
Of
Jordan.
course, thank you so much for having me.
It is nice to reminisce on the good old
It
UT
is.
times.
It is.
And so everyone else, we will be seeing you very shortly. So goodbye and hook 'em horns.